What up? Wade here. Welcome back to the Wade Alter Show. So today I want to talk about a specific group of people. This podcast episode is dedicated to these people. And these people, I really do want the best for them. I hope the best for them. And so if you listen to this and you're one of these type of people, you might be a little bit triggered, but hopefully it also inspires you or kind of goes, I need to think about this thing a little differently. Or if you're aspiring one of these people and you're like, this is the life to live, I'm going to tell you, hopefully I can just pull you by the collar and go, dude, this is not the way to live your life. There's a better way. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the digital nomad. And so I remember back for myself, back when I was getting into internet marketing, I was already traveling a lot. So that part of it, I'm like, okay, I need to keep traveling. I read the 4-Hour Work Week and I'm like, I want to be a part of the new rich where I can travel the world and run my business from anywhere. And all of a sudden, these little communities started developing and they started calling themselves digital nomads. And it seemed like this sort of beautiful heaven area where you go, and you're living in Chiang Mai. And sometimes you're hanging out with the elephants and you're cruising around and doing that and hanging with the tigers. And then all of a sudden you all go to a little WeWork where you're all working together on your laptops. You pop them open together. And then you're working, you're hustling for those 12 hours. And then in between that, you go grab a beer, you get a Chang beer, and you're thinking, you're high-fiving, you're like, dude, we broke the system. We beat the system. This is amazing. I don't need to go to the 9 to 5. I got out of the rat race and I can do whatever I want. Zip. But the thing is you can't do whatever you want if you settle for just the life of a digital nomad. And here's why. The digital nomad lifestyle is playing it small. Like, look it up the definition. Let me just look it up right here. The digital nomad is the type of person who uses telecommunications technology to earn a living. There we go. There's the word. Earn a living. I.e., you just created another job for yourself. I.e., when you go off and play with the elephants in Chiang Mai, you're not making any money. You're a solopreneur. At best, more like a freelancer where you're kind of going from job to job and you have the freedom of you don't need to go into an office, but then every new contract that you get, you got a new boss, and a lot of those bosses aren't very fun, and you're probably not getting paid very well. But you're breaking the system because you only need to live off of $3,000 because you're off living in Thailand. And I'll say this, if you're starting a business, man, if you can leverage that sort of, getting paid in US dollars and living in a different country, I wish there's times where I was really envious of people that moved their whole businesses to Thailand or went off to Krakow, Poland, where for me, I would have done that, but I met a girl, who was, I'm still with here today. And so I had to kind of stay in Chicago, which is probably half the price of a city like Manhattan or coming out here to Santa Monica. And so that's why it actually took a little while because I wanted to make sure I really had a solid foundation before I got out here. But there's something to be said about your environment. It was interesting for me. I was recently back home and looking at Wisconsin, where I grew up, and even the sort of entrepreneurs there. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, like my father, has a painting business, very blue collar businesses. Nothing wrong with that. But again, a lot of times what that leads to is it's just they've created a job for themselves. They don't have a boss, but then every customer that they have is kind of their boss. And they're not really building the business in a way that they can maximize the profit and go, okay, I'm going to build a team. Or even if they have that, it's like they're paying them almost as much as they're making in the end, because it's just that sort of a very sort of small mindset. I'm not talking about blue collar mindset. I'm not talking about small town mindset. Again, the digital nomad, it's the same thing here. What it comes down to is a mindset shift that you need to make if you want to truly have freedom. Because I believe actually that digital nomad lifestyle, the 4-hour work week, what it really comes down to is freedom. And I would say that's my number one priority. I feel that almost all of my friends, all of my clients, that is their number one thing. As a man, especially, I know there's some women listening in, but as man, you want that sort of the freedom, like Mel Gibson style. You want that freedom. It's just a very masculine sort of thing to have. If somebody else is pushing you around or your income's dependent on someone else or somebody can tell you what to do, you kind of feel like a little bit of a bitch. And so if you want that true freedom, you need to go beyond just being the digital nomad living off of $3,500 a month. Because I've had clients that went off and did that. They're glamorizing it. And they're like, oh my God, I've always wanted to live in Thailand for a bit. And they go off there, they go hang out on the beach and some dude jacks his laptop. And so, how good is your business really doing if all of a sudden somebody leaves their laptop out for a little bit and it's getting jacked? That means you don't have that true freedom. You might sort of rationalize it and say, no, I've cracked the code. I've hacked the system. And so I'm off living in, it's nice here 24/7. And I'm surrounded by all these other entrepreneurs, all these other digital nomads. Let me tell you, those are not the type of people you want to surround yourself with long-term. It's time to think bigger. It's time to 10x. It's time to ask yourself, what do you want your life to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you have more than just yourself? Selfishly, it's good to do that in the short term. But long term, you want to think about, okay, if I had a family or if I met that significant other that is worth taking on the road with me or worth doing whatever, am I making enough that I can support both of us? This was a huge motivator for myself when I did my first product launch. I realized that as long as I stayed on the road and as long as I was doing these weekend seminars, if I did meet that special someone, I would never be able to bring them into my life because next week I'd be off to another city. And so that was a huge motivator for me. And on top of that, surrounding myself, I was always cherry picking. So, I was a dating coach. Every so often I meet these super successful entrepreneurs, these great copywriters, guys that knew how to launch products, guys that were charging $10,000, $50,000 for their services. And I'm like, I want to bring these dudes into my world as my friends so that I can have that learning curve, so I can get there faster. That's how you hack the system, is surrounding yourself with people that are further along than you. And again, if you're coming from the corporate world, the digital nomad lifestyle, that is a great first step. But let me tell you, it's just one step along the way. And so you might come at this and say, what about books like Rework or, the guys who did the bootcamp business? And how the story goes is they kept their business small on purpose. Or you have a business like Instagram where it only had 13 employees and then it sold for $1 billion. I'm guessing that if you're building that business over in Chiang Mai, Thailand, or Krakow, Poland, or Barcelona, or whatever, I think Portugal these days, if you're doing those sort of things and you're around those people, it's highly unlikely the next Instagram is going to be coming from one of these places. Where do those come from? They come from places like Silicon Valley. They come from places like Austin, Texas. And so again, this isn't even about becoming a billionaire. What it is about realizing and having the self-awareness to notice when you're on a plateau. And when you're plateauing, and everyone on some level, there's sort of these sort of glass ceilings that you have to break through to hit the next level. And it's so cliche, but either you're growing or you're dying. Your business is either growing or you're dying. And if you're just staying at a certain little income range, you're staying at a certain little revenue figure, and you're afraid to hire people because you're going to make mistakes, and there's all sorts of, self-sabotage that goes into this and the added responsibility of it. I said this many times before, the path to freedom comes down to the path of responsibility. The more responsibility you can take on, the more freedom it's going to give you, both from a financial standpoint, from a location standpoint, from a power standpoint, just from a self-esteem standpoint. The more you take on, and you have those situations where you go from, oh my God, you're freaking out if you lose $100, you gain $100. You have your first $5,000 client, you lose a $5K client, you gain a $5K client. Let me tell you, when you get to $30K ups and downs and $100K ups and downs, I have some clients that are literally losing millions of dollars in a day, but they're also making millions of dollars every year. And so you need to, I talk about it before, that intestinal fortitude that you need to build and realize that you're probably on one of those little plateaus. I mean, I can think back to when I was a dating coach. I saw this all the time. It was so empowering to be like, I could go up to a girl and I could just go talk to her. And all of a sudden, it was amazing. You could just do this approach and obviously build attraction. And it was like you're seeing the Matrix, and guys would see you do this and they're like, how do you do that? I didn't even know this was possible. And as I've said before, I feel like I've definitely leveled up my friends a lot faster because I built that skill set. But it was interesting to see guys about 3 or 4 years in where they were going out all the time. They were going out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 nights a week. They'd move to cities like Las Vegas and they'd go out and they'd just be committed to getting better and better and better. But at some point, they stopped getting better and they just fell into the numbers game. And you could see them, they were going for girls that they weren't even that attracted to, but they knew how to go through the path of meeting her, talking to her, befriending the friends, taking her back out of the hotel and, sealing the deal. And they just go off and do it again and again. And the thing is, for the average dude, he sees that as magical. And maybe for the old you see that as magical. But the new you, the new that you have to become, realizes that that's just you settling on a higher level. It's a mediocre mindset. And so let me tell you, it's scary when you're trying to, all of a sudden you reach a new level and you're like, oh my God, I'm finally above water here. This is great. And you're asking me to go off and jump into the deep end again and go up and climb another Mount Everest that's even twice as high as the last one. And I'm saying, yes, that's what life is all about. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, the more accomplished you feel, the more entitled and just centered as a man and just unapologetic. You just don't give a fuck what other people think of you. And so you see all these people that get so stressed out about, oh my God, like my flight's delayed by 30 minutes. That's why I call it the badge of the entrepreneur, where you've dealt with so much bigger things. And the thing is, it ends up being fun. I can think back to the early days. I was 25. I don't know if I told the story where I was starting off as a dating coach and I had one program in Croatia. And so I had to go off to Zagreb. I'm like, okay, I go off here. I don't know anything that I'm doing. I meet this one guy. I don't know where we're going to go out. I'm trying to teach him all this stuff and try to run a seminar, explain what attraction is, all that stuff. I got food poisoning on the second night from eating shitty kebab and just went through that. And the thing was, I didn't even have another program scheduled. So there I am stuck in Zagreb, a city I've never been to in the middle of winter. I would have loved to go off to the coast, but that wasn't the case in the middle of winter and see all the Game of Thrones beauty and Dubrovnik and places like that. But nope, it was the middle of December. And so then there I am, it's Christmas, I'm sad, I just had food poisoning and there's nothing on the schedule and I'm losing money day by day. And all of a sudden I meet some people at the hostel and they're like, hey, we're going off to Rome. Do you want to join? So I go to Rome for a few days, actually a few weeks, and I'm spending $7 a night to stay at this hostel. Sending off emails, trying to do blog posts, trying to do outreach, all these things to try to get another client. And ooh, all of a sudden something clicks off in Stockholm. Not a very cheap city, but hey, let's go up there. Ooh, and all of a sudden from there in Oslo, something else kicks off. Ooh, all of a sudden, boom. And that was really what hit me where I got above the wave and things started flowing from there. And so I could think back at that time, even going out to Croatia, I remember I was like, man, I don't know if this is a good idea. Should I even go? This is a big risk. What if I get out there and all of a sudden I run out of money and all of a sudden I slam all this credit card debt? What am I going to do? I'd only been to Europe once before, and that was on a sort of backpacker trip with my girlfriend in college, which is a totally different thing. And so all of a sudden I'm trying to run these multi-$1,000 events with a no money back guarantee where at any time they can ask for a refund. And then blowing up that business and that brand entirely and starting over with my real name and going into self-development and teaching more business and going through that process and helping consulting on product launches, getting into headaches with that stuff. And again, I'm sure everyone listening to this has had their own things as well. And what I'm saying is that becomes fun. It becomes a game. I feel like business is the ultimate game of life where I'm thinking about all the time. My girlfriend's like, all you do is talk about this with all your friends. You talk about it with me too much. And I'm like, oh, it used to be I was doing it out of a place of stress. I'm like, oh my God, how do I get this business off the ground? It's all I'm thinking about. From that sort of place, now it's coming from a place of what else can we do? How can we make this fun? How can I poke and prod at competitors, at digital nomads, at my audience? How can I make it more entertaining? What should I do next? How can I level this up? Let's build a team. And if all of a sudden the team, I've already had up to 6 employees before, scaled back to 0, and it's time to do it again. What I see a lot of times is people take that, they dip their toes into kind of taking the next step. Ooh, they get a little bit burned by the fire, and ooh, all of a sudden that anchor kicks in and they never go back again and they hit that plateau. Just like the guy who all of a sudden gets really good at talking to that girl that he's not even that attracted to and it's going all well and she's laughing. But he goes, hey, that girl's really beautiful. I'm going to go up and try to talk to her. And he goes up and there's some jack dude next to him and he just pushes him away. And he remembers back to his childhood and why he got into all this and how he was rejected and everyone made fun of him as a child. And he's like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to stick with the plateau. I'm going to stick with mediocrity. I'm going to stick with those average girls because my friends look up to me and it looks like I'm doing really well. And, that's what's most important is what other people think. And maybe you don't verbalize that. Maybe consciously you're not thinking that. But I'm saying it's time to shatter the ego and it's time to take the next step. And if you're coming from a place of that's what you look forward to, like I said, it could be a step along the way. But ultimately, I want you to think about where do you want to be 10 years from now? Where do you want to be 30 years from now? And how can every day you move towards that? How can every day you do a little bit something that scares you, lean into that edge? This is the theme I come back to a lot. Because it's just something, and I get, like I said, thriving on it, enjoying it, realizing it's a game, quit taking your life so seriously. And the final thing I'll say with this, what really inspired this whole thing is that the number one hack in life is surrounding yourself with other successful people, coaches, mentors. I just hired a new coach myself. And it's funny, I'm super competitive. So all of a sudden, right before it started, I'm like, okay, I got to hire 2 more people for the team. I got to crank up the Facebook ads so that when I show this to him, he's like, oh man, that's pretty good. And just that sort of like psychological shift for myself, I just know what my own sort of motivational strategies are. So I'm using that to harness it versus just living life in a vacuum. And I feel too often that sort of digital nomad, what they're doing, they're living in this sort of like yes world where yes, we're all doing great stuff. We're all that 9 to 5 and whoa, we beat the 9 to 5. We're out of the rat race. Come out here, come to a city like LA, come to Santa Monica. It weirds me out to think that Elon Musk is a stone's throw away. When the wildfires went off and I realized how many successful entrepreneurs and like celebrities and famous people were just off in Malibu, again, 10 miles away from me, it shifts something inside your brain where you go, I need to step up. I need to take the next step. And again, a place like LA here, it can become almost like you get caught up in it. And it's always like, and that's a big part of why I don't like LA is because everyone's looking over each other's shoulders and going, okay, who's the next best person I need to talk to? But I'm talking about this more from your selfish perspective for yourself. And how you can always be growing. I remember one of my first girlfriends, she always said, you're so predictably unpredictable. It's like, yes, every couple days, I want to be reinventing myself. I want to feel like the world has evolved, like something is brand new. And again, meeting amazing people is a big part of that because you get to shift your mindset looking at their mindset. And so again, I'm sure there's some super successful people in Chiang Mai. I completely respect the guys on the beach out here in Venice and Santa Monica that just surf every day. It's the thing that they're most passionate about, and they just really do it. And they live a very sort of chill, minimalist lifestyle. That's great. But if there's this sort of undercurrent beneath that, and you're thinking, okay, yes, I have the freedom, but there's still this sort of stress. There's a financial stress there. There's this little like anxiety, or all of a sudden you see people, like you look at your social media and you see somebody off in a nicer hotel, or they're at the Four Seasons and you go, ugh. Or you see them with a nice car, you're like, ugh. Or all of a sudden they buy this nice watch or something. You're like, I don't need that stuff. Realize if you're having that sort of emotional response, that's kind of like the Jungian shadow self there. And it means you want more. And I believe all humans, we all strive for more. Again, it's the path of growth instead of the path of sort of devolving into destruction. And so that doesn't mean you need to be a billionaire or even a multimillionaire, but you always want to make sure to be self-aware when you're at that plateau and say, okay, it's time to get out of my comfort zone here a little bit and take things to the next level. So for all you digital nomads out there, let's take a little virtual hug. I'm here to help you along the way. If you have any questions, let me know. And for everyone else, it's good to have you here. And as always, enjoy.